Hey guys, this is Dr. Samir Islam, and I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk about 10 things every person with celiac disease should know about. These are very common myths or problems that a lot of people with celiac don't understand, and this is a good way that I want to help summarize what you should know if you've been diagnosed with celiac or you know somebody who has celiac disease. So the first thing that you should know is that keep in mind that celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. And what this means is that whenever you ingest gluten, you have an autoimmune reaction within your small intestine. Your small intestine loses the ability to absorb vitamins, nutrients, and minerals, and so it's an autoimmune disease. It's not something made up. It's not a fad. It's an actual autoimmune reaction, like having an autoimmune reaction against your thyroid, like diabetes, and conditions like that. And so celiac disease is an autoimmune condition. Now, there are a lot of symptoms for patients who have celiac, and they can vary widely. It can range from GI conditions like nausea, diarrhea, weight loss, to something as minor as some itching elbows. And in fact, a good number of patients may actually have celiac but not have any symptoms from that. And so keep in mind, just because you don't have the typical symptoms of what you may know as celiac disease, you may be having other things that could manifest as this particular condition. So things that are related to celiac in terms of symptoms but are not digestive includes things like having iron deficiency anemia, so your blood count is low and they can't figure out why, having a lot of fatigue and not clear why, having bone pain or joint pain, having seizures, having depression, having an unknown cause for osteoporosis because you can't absorb vitamin D or calcium when you have celiac, or having a really itchy skin on your elbows or your knees. These are non-digestive symptoms of celiac, which you may have, and a lot of people who have celiac may actually only manifest with these conditions alone and not have the classic GI symptoms. The fourth thing I want you to know is that up to 20% of the patients have a skin condition who have celiac. This is called Dermatitis Herpetiformis. This is where you have very itchy elbows, knees, or buttocks, and it just keeps on itching. You can't figure out why. And when you take a biopsy, you actually end up having this condition. And these patients who have this rash condition very commonly have celiac. And this is something you should be aware of. This is a non-digestive, I can't speak today, a non-digestive symptom of celiac disease. Keep in mind, celiac is hereditary, and so people who have a first-degree relative with celiac have a 1 in 10 chance of actually having the disease itself. So if you have a brother, a sibling, a mom or dad who has celiac, there may be a chance you could have that as well. And there are tests that we can order to see if you have this condition. So if left untreated, celiac disease can lead to really serious medical problems. This includes things like lymphoma, significant weight loss, and really significant iron deficiency anemia. Now this is very different from gluten intolerance because in gluten intolerance, you don't have these long-term complications like you do with celiac. For untreated celiac, there's a very high risk of this going into lymphoma within the small intestine, which is a very serious problem to have. But not only that, you can have a lot of weight loss and have a really low blood count. A lot of people who have celiac complain of this brain fog, and this is this cognitive impairment where you don't feel like your normal self. You feel disorientated, you have problems staying focused or paying attention, you have lapses in the short-term memory, and typically they don't feel like themselves when they eat wheat or gluten. And this is very common both in celiac and in people who have gluten intolerance. They have this brain fog where they don't feel like their normal self. And if this is you, you may be wondering, you may actually have celiac going on. Now, up to 20% of the patients who have celiac still have persistent symptoms despite being on a gluten-free diet. And this may be an indication that something else could be going on within your gut, whether it's a condition called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, pancreatic problems, irritable bowel syndrome or IBS, or other malabsorptive problems. So a lot of people who have celiac, if you're still having symptoms despite being on a gluten-free diet and being strict with that, make sure you speak to your healthcare provider about whether you need to be tested for other things that are going on within your gut. Now, number 9, this is a very important problem that a lot of people have, but a lot of celiac patients have significant nutritional deficiencies. They can be low in iron, they can be low in calcium or vitamin D, which will lead to osteoporosis. They can be low in zinc, vitamin B6, vitamin B12, and folate. So if you have deficiencies in any of these vitamins and you can't figure out why, you may want to be tested for celiac to see if that may be the reason why you're having problems absorbing these vitamins. And if you have celiac, make sure you get these checked at least once a year to make sure you don't have any particular problems with that. Lastly, the important thing about celiac is that even consuming small amounts of gluten is very, very, very bad for you. Gluten is a general name for the protein found in wheat, rye, and barley. And if someone with celiac ingests gluten, they can have a very serious reaction, which can lead to long-term complications like the lymphoma I spoke about. This is different from somebody who has gluten intolerance, where you can ingest gluten. You may feel bad, but you will not have the autoimmune reaction, nor will you have the long-term complications that occur with celiac. So in summary, these are the 10 things I want you to be aware of when you have celiac. Number 1, it's an autoimmune disease. Number 2, there are over 300 symptoms of celiac. Number 3, digestive symptoms are not the only manifestation of this disease. Number 4, 20% of the patients with celiac have a skin condition, which is very, very itchy skin on the elbows or on the knees. Number 5 is that celiac disease is hereditary. So if you have a family member who has that, you may actually have it yourself. Number 6, if left untreated, celiac disease can lead to serious medical problems. Number 7, many people with celiac complain of a brain fog or not feeling like themselves. Number 8, up to 20% of the patients with celiac have persistent symptoms despite being on a gluten-free diet, so make sure you get checked for other conditions you may have. Number 9, celiac patients have significant nutritional deficiencies, calcium, vitamin D, iron, things like that, so make sure you get checked for that. Or if you have a deficiency in them, they can't figure out why, make sure you get checked for celiac. And number 10, even consuming small amounts of gluten can be very, very bad.